Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Investor More, and I did something for the first time ever as a landlord today. I went to mediation with a tenant. Sort of. We'll talk about what happened. So I'm in Colorado, and if a tenant has any kind of federal or local assistance, you now have to go through mediation before you can evict them. And so this is the complex. This is what it looked like after I fixed it up. I'm not talking about which unit it is or what tenant. And those cars are actually previous tenants. This is an older video. But we had a tenant who got behind on rent. They said their bank account was hacked. They never got caught up. We tried to work out a payment plan with them. They wouldn't work with us. They wouldn't help us. Basically, they thought, sorry, we didn't pay all our rent. We're just going to keep pretending like it didn't happen and move forward without talking to you or working out a plan. And so we thought the only way to get something going and hopefully get some talking points going, some communication, was to post a notice or quit notice, a pay or quit notice, sorry. And that starts the eviction process. So they can either pay everything they owe or they can quit and leave to avoid the eviction. Otherwise, they can go through to eviction court, have the sheriffs come out, all of that. Well, what happened was the tenant said, I want to go to mediation. And that's when we realized we have to go to mediation if we do any kind of eviction with someone with housing assistance or federal assistance, even disability. There's all kinds of rules on what you have to do. And this is what the property looked like right after I bought it. It was beautiful, I tell you what. We did just a little bit of work on it. And so we said, okay, we looked at all the laws, rules. We've got to go through mediation. As a landlord, I've got to pay $100. It's non-refundable to do this mediation. The tenant doesn't have to pay anything. The state pays for them. So we called up the tenant, talked to them, said, hey, the next available time is a week from today on a Monday. Do you want to do mediation then? The tenant says, nope, I can't do it. I've got doctor appointments all day. Sorry. We've got to do it a different day. So like, okay, how about Tuesday? And like, okay, Tuesday works fine. I'll be there. We'll do the mediation and hopefully we can come up with something. We're like, great. We scheduled the appointment. We paid our $100 to the mediator. We got an email confirmation from the mediator that was sent to us and the tenant saying, hey, it's Tuesday at 10 o'clock and we're good to go. We also got our rent together, our lease together, the rent ledger, the application that was originally filled out. Any information we could, we sent it to the mediator as well so they could see what was going on, what was happening. Well, yesterday, which was Monday, it's about 10 till 10 a.m., the tenant shows up at our office. And they say, hey, what do we do? We're here for the mediation. And we're like, that's tomorrow, and you don't have to be here. It's over a Zoom call, and you can also call in with your phone. And they said, nope, it's today. We know it's today. I said, no. Actually, my front desk person who set this up, and I was there too, said, nope, it's not today. I talked to you. I was on the phone with you. We have it all scheduled. You have emails sent to you. It's tomorrow. And they said, nope, sorry, we can't do it tomorrow. We have doctor's appointments tomorrow. So it's got to be today or we're rescheduling. And not to speculate, but we're 98% sure that this was done on purpose. And so we said, sorry, we can't just reschedule. We already paid for it. It's tomorrow. And they said, well, we're not doing it then. And so they left. And we talked to, you can see how beautiful this property was. It was amazing. we talked to the mediator. I sent him an email. I told him exactly what happened. And he says, okay, I sent her an email. She knows what time it's supposed to be at. And if you reschedule, you can't schedule through me. It's got to be another week out. And you've got to pay another $100. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he's like, but you don't need to reschedule. So this was actually good news. I'm like, really? He's like, yep. He's like, she got the email. She knows when the date was. If she can't make it, then we're just going to continue with the mediation and go from there. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear this because I was just, thinking in my head, oh, we're going to delay this to next week. We're going to delay this to next week. We're going to delay this to next week. And every time I've got to pay $100 because we've had some issues in Colorado with other properties like squatters who moved in and the judge sided with the squatters and allowed them to have another hearing, another month in the property when they had no lease, weren't paying rent. You never know what's going to happen in these situations. So we talked to the tenant again and said, hey, it's still tomorrow. And she said, nope, I can't go. I have doctor's appointments. We're like, okay. Well, the mediator said it's still tomorrow. here's the information. And the mediator said he called you, or sorry, said you got the email, said it was sent to you. And she says, I don't know how to use email. I don't use email. And we're like, well, our property management software is DoorLoop. I've talked about that before. And they send emails and statements to all of our tenants. And we can see on there that emails were sent to her, and she opened them and looked at them. So, pretty sure she knows how to use email. Pretty sure, this was similar to her other actions. And so we said, okay, well, you still were on the phone with us when we made this appointment. And she's like, nope, it wasn't. That was wrong. We're like, okay, well, it's still tomorrow. And so what I did, I drove over to the complex, posted the email from the mediator with the Zoom link, all the numbers you can call into, all the instructions how to do it, posted it to her door. Took a picture of it. There's no confusion about when it is, where it is, how to sign on, that you need an email, anything like that. And said, hey, you don't need to come to our office. You can do it on your phone, computer. If you don't have a computer, you can use your phone. It's fine. You can call in. There's all kinds of ways to get in on this mediation. And so we did that. And then me being I don't know what word to use, but I drove by the property this morning before mediation was supposed to happen, and her car was there. And it's just one person who kind of lives there. I might have said we before. It was just one person. We have cameras on the property. I can't really see the car in cameras, but I know I can see if it comes or goes, and I get motion alerts. And we could see her showing up last night. The car was there all night. The car was there today. No other cars were coming by. They didn't leave the property. Maybe, just maybe, she got picked up for these appointments. But I drove by after the mediation, and the car was still there too, because, of course, she never showed up to mediation, called in, did anything. So for the mediation, I did a Zoom link. I got there about 5 minutes early, and the mediator was there. He was super nice. He said he got my emails. He said he actually had called or talked to the tenant the night before. Again, they said they're not coming. They have doctor's appointments, and he told them, sorry, this appointment's been set up for over a week. You had plenty of notice. You never told us any of this. It's scheduled, and I can't unschedule it. So he was very clear about it. We talked for a while. I gave him just a little bit of information about it, but he really didn't want any information unless the tenant showed up. We talked about this program. I asked him if he's got a lot of these. He said he does about 15 to 20 of these mediations a month. And there must have been 10 to 12 different mediators on the Colorado website. So I don't know if he does more than others, but I just picked the first available. I didn't pick and choose between the mediators. And he said he doesn't do many in my county, but he does a few. And was asking if we've done any of these. I'm like, nope, we haven't. A lot of my tenants don't have any assistants. Some do, but not all. Most of them don't. And we rarely have to do an eviction, even though it seems like we do a lot of them. We really don't have to do that many actual evictions and go through with it. So I don't know what that is. I know I showed some weird stuff in these old videos, and I'm sorry. But we were on the Zoom call, video, audio, all of that. And I recorded it just in case something crazy happened. But since nothing crazy happened, I'm not going to show any of it. And he said, we're going to wait till a quarter after if she doesn't show. We're all done. And I said, okay, so does that mean we have to reschedule? Or how does that work? And he's like, nope. If she doesn't show up, I've got a form here. I'll fill it out. I'll talk about the whole situation. I'll say that she was given plenty of notice. She had plenty of time. And I will give you a mediation certificate saying that. And you can take that to the judge if you go through with eviction. And I was like, oh, man, this is going way better than I thought it would. So I guess I should have a more positive attitude about these situations. So 15 minutes went by. She never showed up. He said he even texted her. He tried to get in touch with her. She wouldn't respond. And so he gave me my certificate. We were done. And there we go. So the interesting thing about this, and I was talking to Nikki, my project manager, about this is, this policy of requiring mediation actually encourages more evictions. Because now that I've gone through this, I've paid my $100, I've set up this appointment, I've taken time out of my day, I've driven by the property, if we have to go to court, this is why I didn't do all these things just for the mediator. I didn't even mention to him that I drove by the property or had cameras on the property because I didn't think it was important. And I might not mention it to anybody else except for people in this video. But if we go to eviction and the judge is like, and she shows up and the judge is like, well, she said you had an appointment that was wrong and you scheduled it wrong. I'm like, here's the email. Here's a certificate. Here's a note we posted on her door. Here's a camera of her car before the mediation appointment, not at the doctor. Here's a picture of her car after the mediation appointment, not at her doctor. The judge texted her. She never, not the judge, the mediator texted her. She never responded. I've got all this information to back me up if she tries to do anything and pull something. So, but why this encourages an eviction is, like I say, I spent this time doing it. And now, if she comes to us and is like, oh, can we do a payment plan and work things out? It's like, well, if we do a payment plan and work things out, and then this happens again, am I going to want to go through mediation again and go through all of this and jump through all these hoops? No, I'm not going to want to keep doing this every single month or every 2 months over and over again. And since we already completed mediation, we already got our certificate, it actually encourages me to do an eviction now as opposed to working with them when they don't show up and don't get this figured out. And so, in a way, I mean, maybe this mediation helps some tenants and some landlords work through things. I don't know. But I think it could also encourage others to do more evictions and go through with them because of this situation. And honestly, we try to work with people before we post the notice to quit, before we go through an eviction, because they're expensive, because we have to pay our lawyer and it takes time. And once you start the eviction, there's a good chance the tenants will stop paying rent or they might do more damage to the property. We don't want to go through with evictions. We don't want that hassle, and we don't want to have to put people through that either unless that's the only option. So honestly, I think the system itself still, gives people the chance to work with tenants because it makes sense, because it's usually cheaper. It's usually a better option to avoid eviction unless a tenant is just, completely trashing a place, unreasonable, refusing to pay rent, just crazy, which is what we've had that happen before on properties too. And again, this place was nasty when I bought it. We spent probably around $250,000, maybe a little more, rehabbing everything and getting new tenants in there. So also makes it a little more frustrating when you have situations like this because we did so much and went through so much work on this property. So we're not done with this tenant yet. We haven't heard from them since this happened, but we have our certificate. It was sent to me. We can send the eviction to our attorney now. That, starts the process. And if we actually have the eviction, I will probably show up. You can show up to most court hearings through Zoom now, so I have to show up in person, but I can be on the Zoom meeting with my lawyer. That way, if there's any questions, if she tries to show up and say, hey, this happened, I'm like, nope, we've got documentation, we've got the proof, we've got everything right here, and we can go through with it. Now, in an ideal situation, a perfect world, this tenant just moves out. We never hear from them again, we part ways, and they leave the place in amazing condition. We rent it again, hopefully quickly. That's the perfect world. Will that happen? I have my doubts, but we'll see. We'll go from here. And could have been worse. Could have been way worse with the mediation thing. And it really would have been interesting to see what would happen if she showed up and how that worked and what the mediator tried to do and how we worked through this. I'm not saying I want to do this again to go through that, but never say never. And also, I've said this before in my other video, but not saying this would be me. This 100% discourages landlords not to work with people who have assistants because they don't have to go through this extra hoop. Every time you make it harder, more difficult, more expensive for landlords, it makes them not want to rent properties. It makes them want to sell them. It makes them want to raise rents. It makes them want to get out of the business, which means fewer rentals, higher rents. And when you have specific groups that have different rules, it makes landlords not to want to rent to specific groups with specific rules if it's more difficult, more expensive, etc. That's just how it works. So we'll see how this develops. Of course, we'll have lots of updates here. I'd love to hear what you think. And yeah, I heard from a few people who had to go through mediation in other states. Some said it was fairly easy. One person said it was a nightmare and it took weeks and weeks and weeks. So I did ask this mediator as well, like, hey, is it usually just a short hour time, or do you have, crazy long ones? He's like, nope, we usually get them done in an hour or less, sometimes 2, but it's very, very rare we ever go past that. So that was good to hear as well. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon.